Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon Live. Because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
The work is for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hi, welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hello there, Dr. Vanessa. How you doing?
Hey, Lottie, I'm great. Hanging in there.
Which side of the country are you on? Are you in New York now? Or are you in some other country someplace?
Well, you know I'm leaving next week, so you'll be missing me for 4 months. Time of year.
Yes, well, you know what? We're excited about the show. We're not excited about talking about what we're going to talk about with all this violence, gun violence, stabbing, everything that's going on now, and it's just looked like there's no end to anything that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But our two guests tonight is going to talk to us about some of the work that they do with the young people. And our first guest we have on is Pastor Rashad Raymond Moore. He's the pastor at First Baptist, I'll say the famous First Baptist Church of Crown Heights. And he lives in Brooklyn. And our second guest is Sion Moore. Sion is a licensed FID development instructor. And his program is Thought Patterns. And he works with young people, teaching them chess. They learn discipline by teaching them chess. So I am so excited to have both of you on tonight to talk about our topic. And you both have worked with young people for a while. And Pastor, we know about your work over at Crown Heights First Baptist Church. You know, there's a lot that goes on at your church over there. And our topic was tonight is about the violence or people that angry. Because sometimes when I think about it, with all of this, shooting and stabbing, like when people get in arguments or have disagreements, are you that angry that you feel you have to take someone's life? I mean, because, in the day, we didn't pull out no guns and knives and stuff. We would just fight. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I used to fight, I'd grease my face up with some Vaseline and I'm ready to go. But now it's like you can't even talk to anyone or step on their toe about they pulling out a knife or a gun and want to shoot you or stab you. So it's like people just have lost their mind or they going crazy. What is it?
Want me to start?
Just jump on in.
Yeah. So I would say that one of the reasons why people pick up guns is because it gives a sense of power. It gives a sense of control. And so if you're in a world where you feel like you don't control anything else in life, you think by carrying that gun, it gives you some sense of power. Another thing I'm thinking with gun violence amongst young people is I think that some of that gun violence gives them a sense of purpose. That I may not have anything else going for me. I may not play an instrument. I may not be in school right now. I may not have a purpose or a talent or some kind of trade or skill. And so at the end of the day, when I don't have anything else to do, I pick up a gun. And I think this culture of violence is also giving people a sense of purpose. And so with some of our younger people, some of the turf or some of the violence that we've seen, like in Crown Heights, some of this gun violence, once you pick up a gun, that is in response to the fact that you dissed me on a rap video on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So we have built an entire culture around violence because it feeds a sense of purpose. And what human beings need more than anything else is a sense of belonging. I need to know that I belong to somebody. I need a sense of self-esteem. I need to feel good about myself. And then I also need a sense of purpose. I have to find a reason to wake up in the morning. And if I don't have a reason to wake up in the morning, then that becomes nihilism. And so if me being angry with you gives me a reason to wake up in the morning and post on Instagram, then I'm going to do that. But I'm going to tell you this one thing before I be quiet. I am a hope dealer. I deal hope. That is my job, to deal hope. I still believe that there are possibilities. And I think that if we can give young people a sense of belonging, if we outside of a game, and if we can give them a sense of purpose, I believe some of this gun violence will be cut. I really do believe it.
But Pastor, wouldn't that also start with because you're first born and then you grow up into an adult, you know, a lot of this starts at home. Of said, not that you're gonna turn out exactly how your parents wanted to raise you or raise you or whatever. You do the best you can as a parent, but coming up as a young person, that's when you start finding out like where you should belong, or you know, I mean, I know everybody don't do that, but I'm just saying a lot of it to me starts at home.
Now, what I also do, and I think that it's important for church folk to do this, is that oftentimes what we do is we have made young people and these teenagers, we have made them the scapegoat for all of the issues in the community. I believe that this gun violence is connected directly, it's directly correlated to poverty. Gun violence is the highest in communities where poverty is the highest. When poverty comes down, gun violence comes down. When you put, I have a friend who works in St. Louis who did work to realize that if a black man makes at least $50,000 a year, he is least likely to pick up a gun. If you got a job that you can go to every day, a 9 to 5, you don't have time to shoot anybody. But another part is this, I'm not on the tangent. Another part of this is gun violence is also high in communities where school budgets have been cut. Mm-hmm. I mean, and some of the things that we thought didn't make a difference made a big difference. After school programs made a big difference. But when you cut a school budget and students don't have extracurricular activities, they don't have basketball teams, they don't have the band, they have nothing to do after school. And most of these crimes happen when? After school. And so let's not just talk about the teenagers, let's also talk about the poverty. Poverty that snatches away opportunities to find your purpose.
To echo on what the pastor just said, 100% agree with him. If the kids don't have anything to hold on to, or not even kids, anyone, we're talking about gun violence, this is something that affects everyone of all ages. And if they don't have anything to hold on to, it's easier for them to make these decisions to let it all go. I see it in teaching chess all the time. A student might feel like, I have no chance to win. You know exactly what they do. All they care about is taking other pieces. They start sacrificing. They start giving up. It's almost 8 different ways they can draw the game. You know, they don't even think of that option anymore because it was almost like, I can't win. I don't care. So imagine that same response in a life situation with somebody. Then you could start understanding, Shannon, as 4 people who are saying, how can somebody think like that? We're playing with all our pieces on the board. They feel like they don't have any pieces left. So now they're making decisions from that perspective. So from our perspective of all these pieces, and we might have even extra more on the side, we have to find ways to make them feel like they have pieces on the board. They have an opportunity to be heard, felt, and belong, like the Reverend said, without it being something so sensationalized as gun violence or as a fight or as a video or a song, you know. And the desensitizing of violence period in gaming, and that's why I stick to chess as a core, because chess is a game where I had to tell my kids, you capture pieces. They was like, oh, I killed this piece, I killed that piece. No, you capture pieces. We don't kill pieces in chess, okay? Mm-hmm. And that showed me to the level that the idea of winning in a game was killing. Like, it wasn't even about how many points, like that, how we grew up. It was always about points. And I'm teaching the kids, this piece is worth this point. And it was about, oh, I killed this many pieces. They didn't even care the value of the pieces that they killed. It was about how many they killed.
But I understand both points coming from what you said, and I have seen that with my own eyes and everything. But it's also not just people that's in poverty, because you got people young people killing each other that come from good homes. They ain't starving for nothing. They ain't missing nothing. I don't know what happens to them when they get out there, or what goes through their mind. Maybe it's just getting up with the wrong kids or whatever, because other people have come from poverty or whatever, but they're not killing anybody.
But I think some of the things that's added to that, when we think about the things that are in the marginalized, disproportionate communities, and these are the particular Black and Brown communities, when we have structures and structural racism and things that are embedded in these communities that brings on limited resources. And this is what happens. You could come from a well-to-do family, but then what happens when that child gets out the house, when they're around certain kids that don't have as much, that may not have a two-parent household, they start acclimating themselves to different type of behaviors and cultures of which we talk about. So there's a lot of things that stem in the root, the stemming from these communities where there's limited resources, lack of resources thereof, lack of accessibility to resources. Like we said, there's no more after school programs. There's not much summer job, youth job. It's limited resources out there. And just listen, overall, if we even just to think further than that, look at the things that happen in other communities not looking like these marginalized disproportionate community, and look how fast it first is considered called a crisis. Look how much resources gets added to those communities, and look how now they tackle those particular things that happen in those communities. It's a whole big thing when we talk about racism, structural things that's already embedded in the fabric of this country.
Yes, you are absolutely right. And I'm gonna go back to what I've already said. And every time we have this argument, I'm gonna go right back to what I said before. Yes, these things are missing in our community. But when we go to the people in the community to try to get them to come out to fight for their community, get the resources in their community, when we have the meeting, empty seats are all over the auditorium. Yes, because they don't come out and fight for the after school program. Yeah, and I'm not making this up because I work for the Board of Ed, so I know what goes on there and how you get these programs and stuff like that. And when we would try to get the program and stuff in the schools and stuff like that, you couldn't get the parents to come out to the meeting.
A lot of these parents and people are so complacent. They so conditioned to living in generational debt. This is a normalcy for them. This is normal for them. Okay, so how do we?
Okay, then. So what I'm saying is, then what do we do? What some specific stuff that we can do? Because people hear us talking and we saying what it is, what the problem is. What can we tell people that you need to be doing to help your children and the children in the community, or get stuff in your community and resources that you need?
So 3 things. The first thing I want to say is that I think we have a way of looking at history through rose-colored glasses. Mm-hmm. There may be a slight increase in violence now, but this is not the first time that violence has been run amok in places like New York.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pastor, hold that thought. Don't forget what you were getting ready to say. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back.
All right.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
911, where's your emergency?
Everyone's on their way. What happened? Your phone's not breathing. Please get my mom and dad. Oh my God!
Hi, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Pastor Moore from Crown Heights, First Baptist Church of Crown Heights, and Mr. Sion Moore from Thought Patterns. Pastor, sorry to interrupt you before we was getting ready to go to break.
No, you were asking a great question about, I hear your, I don't call it pessimism, but I hear your concern about, it seems like we're like, going in circles. And what can we do? Like, what are the tangibles? Well, first thing I would say is that this is not like the first time that we have dealt with violence in Brooklyn, right? So people are like, oh, gun violence is up. I remember when I was younger, and they weren't shooting, but I remember when people would walk down the street and just get slashed in the face. I don't know if people remember that back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Just had a whole long line on the side of their face because they were just getting slashed. So we've always had like pockets of violence. The second thing is to abandon assumptions, right? You say like when the parents don't show up. We're also dealing, as a pastor, I realized that one of the best things to do is abandon the assumptions, right? You assume things, you make an ass out of you and me, right? Excuse my language. But you're dealing with, you ask why parents don't show up. One, you're dealing with the younger generation of parents who may not know how, change happens. But also, as Dr. Said, we are also dealing with people who have lost hope. Hopelessness is real. And so you've got to do even more work every week and every day of trying to inspire that hope. And the best way to inspire that hope is by celebrating the work that's already on the ground. So it may look like the whole community doesn't care, but there are people on the ground. There are former gang members who are on the ground, who are actually quelling some of the beef between some of these teenagers. And my last point, because I don't want to talk too much, it takes a special person. It takes a special person to come down and to talk to teenagers as opposed to talk at them or talk about them. So when I was at that dinner today, I'm 32. Most of the brothers at the table were like 17, 18. And in that moment, I realized they live a world that's totally different from me. With my degrees and all of that, and my position, all of that, they live in a world that's totally different from me. And so as a pastor, I'm trying to work to make sure that we can bridge the gap. Because sometimes it's easier to join a gang than it is to join a church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, Pastor. So what do we need to be telling people in the community? Like you said, there are some people on the ground that's really working. Yeah. But I'm saying for us to have to change what we keep saying that's happening and why it's happening. What do we really need to be doing? Now, one thing I know, like you said, that you went to the meeting and you met with the two gang people and you talked to them and, try to convince them that there is another world out there and we need to come together. I know we need to be doing more talking, but how do we do this? How do we do this so we're not just going around in circles, and continuously doing this? I know with the resources in the community and stuff like that, I always try to tell people that, when voting comes, you have to go out and vote. So this way you can you have more opportunity to fight and to get stuff in your community and stuff. They don't realize how important voting is because you can get more stuff in your community and stuff like that. Because politicians look at who votes for them. That's how that works and everything. And they don't seem to understand that that's how that works.
Well, how would they understand that? Who's explaining that to them? What programs or what organizations is taking time to explain these things?
There's a lot of organization that talks about voting, and every time it's time to vote every year, people start talking about voting.
Right, benefits of voting. As soon as you start talking about voting, it's like when somebody see a jury duty letter. It's just like I know the process, I heard it, but it doesn't directly make me feel excited or want to be a part of it or even care about it like I should. So maybe more emphasis should be put on the building of true understanding. How does change really happen? To explain to a parent that you have more power than I do in your school system to write a letter and where that letter, who to write it to and how to follow up on it and what to expect. Exposure in some sense is what we ultimately need. We need examples too. If without the examples of this working, it's hard to motivate people to really change. And especially like Pastor said, we have a lot of people who feel hopeless. And there's a lot of reasons why they feel
it's not that people don't be talking to people, Sion. I'm not even going to talk about other people. I can only speak for myself and experience that I have seen. I'm telling you what I see with my eyes and my mouth. You talk to them, you explain to them what it is, why is it important? Just like when I used to talk to the parents, like, this is the reason it's important, because you're fighting for your child. And you are talking and talking until you then turn another shade color or whatever. But like Pastor says, we can't give up hope. We got to keep talking. So being that I'm the type of person, I'm going to keep talking regardless, because I talk anyway. As you see that, I'm going to keep talking. I'm just saying sometimes when you think about it, it's like, what do we just keep? How many times do you have to tell somebody? And particularly if you explain in the voting process to somebody, they know what it is, but then they'll sit there and turn around and say, well, it doesn't matter because they're not going to do anything anyway.
I think it's about organizing. I mean, you can't, and the thing is, we think, think about it. And I'll say this: the meeting that I went to tonight with the two groups was actually organized by my council member, Crystal Hudson. So if the pastors are not doing the work of bringing the gangs together, if, it's people like Crystal Hudson who's showing us a different kind of political engagement. Other part is, we've got to organize as a community. I think that's what organizing is about, the church, the unions, all of that. Because what happens is we think that the burden of social change is on the elected official. And while I might work with an elected official, once they out of office or they don't get reelected, they out.
No. It's on the community.
And so
the community need to hold these politicians accountable. There's no accountability. They come in.
No, people say accountability, and I got that point. Other part that you said, what can we do? We've also got to sit down and talk about what it is that we want. We said hold the elected official accountable. When you go to a meeting, you need to go to a meeting with an agenda and demands. We go to elected officials with questions. We need to go to them. This is the
you are absolutely right, Pastor. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Pastor.
Yes,
when we go to a meeting, we need to come with an agenda. The problem is getting to the meeting. That's what I keep saying. For them to get to the meeting so we can do the agenda.
Yeah, but those agendas should not only be tabled during that term for that politicians in office. It needs to be a continuous. People still need to be engaged and be involved.
Well, see, that's why I say it's like Pastor said with the organization. It's the organizations in the community. It's the churches in the community. It's any people that have some kind of authority in the community to come together, like he said, and organize. And that way, where the politicians, we got to hold them accountable, because we definitely need to hold them accountable. But even when they're out of office, we can still go after the new person who comes to take their place. Because we already put an agenda together.
You got to hold them accountable. But some of our, I don't want to go there. I'm in Crown Heights. We want to hold them accountable when other communities go with demands. This is what we want. And it's not accountability. We hold you accountable once we have made the demands. But it takes time for us to come together and think about what it is that you really want.
So ultimately, we're talking about building a community structure that's lasting. Right?
Yes.
And that's not new.
Yes.
All right. Yes. And that's something we've been talking about also for years and trying for years. So what new tactics would I suggest that we try? With that community, the policing has to be readjusted. In my eyes, we're dealing with kids, dealing with on the ground. I have a 25-year-old brother who's at the cusp of his life of picking a lot of big decisions. How he gonna choose to be a man? What kind of man? And I believe policing does play a big part in it. It's a negative connotation overall, and it's ultimately there's something that's in place to be a safety mechanism. Imagine living a life where you never even think of that as an option. You understand? And that kind of disconnect leads to people wanting to resolve problems on their own and resolve problems the way that they're not even thinking about the law, because they don't even call the law. And so that kind of, when I say a lasting community, it pulls into everything everybody was saying, that we need to ultimately have the older people, or the people who are the go-getters and the people that's shaking in the community, stick together, create a community where they are a unit, they are a gang. It should be something that they're a gang. I should feel more comfortable going to my local pastor and say, hey, I just had, why should I have to meet Reverend Moore, even though we have the same last name, no relation? Why would I have to meet him on your show to make any kind of real connection with a pastor? Mm-hmm. It should be something that is almost automatic. Hey, you're a young man, got a business that's geared around my community. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. And that's not there. We need to put more inference on that then. And then maybe we have the parents who see the pastor that they know and the young chess coach that they know, talking all the time, always together, doing things together. Now the coming out is 2 levels of coming out now, right? We got two.
So that would be at community meetings. That would be at community meetings.
But now they got
That
two people that's going to support them when they go to that community.
Well, yeah,
But how do we get
that's what I'm
to
saying.
the meetings? How do we go to
Bring
where
that
people
agenda.
congregate to bring them to the table?
I'm sorry, Miss
Where
Vanessa.
do we go to? Where do we go to? Where do we go with? Where do people congregate where we can bring them to the table?
But with the beauty of us all coming together is all those different platforms going to come. The Reverend probably have a strong social media platform with his strong community outreach programs. I might have a strong in the school platform, or not platform, but you get what I'm saying, influence that I can bring that together now. And is the mixing of these different worlds that we were ultimately talking about as well.
See, on the way that would work is just like you said, and just like Pastor said, just like he said about the councilman brought this meeting together with the game. That would be the same thing is the people in the community, the politicians, the pastors, people like your organization, like you said, we would have a meeting, an ongoing meeting, not just once a year or twice a year or something like that. Ongoing where you are talking to each other, bringing people together, and maybe talking to the people in that way, maybe would give them some kind of hope and know that things can change if we come together. Look, we run out of time, but I need y'all to stay around about 5 or 10 minutes because I have to finish my last questions to the pastor and you. So we're going to wrap up this part of the show, and then we're going to come back with the after show. So we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight for this part of the show. And if you want to see the after show, you can always go to our Facebook page and YouTube page, and you can watch us from there. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Sion, and thank you, Pastor. And as always, we'll see y'all next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Do you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Space Rock Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shana.